I scrolled past it twice before I realized what I was looking at. My daughter Natalie had posted a family photo from Thanksgiving dinner. The caption read, "So grateful for this beautiful family. Missing those who couldn't be with us this year." The photo showed everyone gathered around the table in what I recognized as her dining room in Mississauga. Aaron, my son-in-law, the kids, Harper and Owen, Natalie's brother Liam with his wife Courtney, and there, in the spot where I'd been sitting that day, was empty space. Not blank, not obvious. Someone had photoshopped the image carefully. The chair was still there. The place setting was still there. But I was gone. Erased. Like I'd never existed. I sat in my living room in Burlington, Ontario, staring at my laptop screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I'd been at that dinner. I'd driven the 30 minutes from my house to Natalie's. I'd carved the turkey. I'd played with the grandkids after dinner. I had photographs on my own phone from that day. But in the version my daughter posted to Facebook, shared with her 847 friends, I didn't exist. The comments underneath were what made it worse. "Beautiful family, Nat. You're so blessed. Love this. Family is everything." Not one person asked where I was. Not one person mentioned my absence. It was like I'd been written out of the story entirely. Facebook doesn't ask questions. It just shows you who you are to people. And apparently, to my daughter's 847 friends, I didn't exist. What you're about to hear isn't just a family story. It's exactly how elder exploitation begins, quietly, digitally, and in plain sight. By the end of this, you'll understand why that photo mattered, because this didn't end with a photo. I picked up my phone and called Natalie. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What would I even say? An hour later, my phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. "Hey Dad, sorry I missed your call. Everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "I noticed I wasn't in any of the Thanksgiving photos you posted." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, a response. "Oh, those were just candid shots. You know how it is. I didn't even think about it. Love you." I called her back. This time she answered, "Dad, I really don't have time right now. Why did you edit me out of the photos, Natalie?" Silence. Then, quietly, almost matter of fact, "We can't keep explaining you to people, Dad." The line went dead. A minute later, her text popped up. "Can we talk about this later? I'm at work." "When later?" "I'll call you this weekend." She didn't call that weekend, or the next one. My name is Gordon Fletcher. I'm 64 years old, retired from 38 years as an electrician with Toronto Hydro. I was widowed 6 years ago when my wife Joyce died from complications of diabetes. We raised 2 kids, Natalie 36 and Liam 33, both married, both living within an hour of me, both seemingly content to pretend I don't exist. The Facebook photo incident happened in mid-November. By December, I'd noticed a pattern. Natalie's Instagram, which I'd learned to check because she posted more there than anywhere else, showed photos from Harper's school Christmas concert. Not one shot included me, though I'd been sitting in the second row cheering louder than anyone. Liam's Facebook showed a family trip to Niagara Falls. The caption mentioned 3 generations having fun together, but the only grandfather visible in the photos was Courtney's dad, who'd joined them for the day. I was being systematically erased from my children's public lives. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, sensitive. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe they just didn't think to include me. Maybe I wasn't photogenic. Maybe they wanted their feeds to look a certain way. Maybe this was just how families worked now in the age of social media. I almost convinced myself to let it go. Some people would have ignored it. Others wouldn't. I wanted to be the kind of father who didn't make a scene. But then Christmas happened. I'd been invited to Liam's house in Oakville for Christmas dinner. Courtney had texted me the details. Traditional dinner, come at 4 bring nothing, just yourself. I arrived at 3:55 with gifts for the grandkids and a bottle of wine I'd picked up at the LCBO. Liam answered the door. "Hey Dad, come in." The house was warm, smelled like roasting ham. I could hear the kids playing downstairs. Courtney's parents were already there, sitting in the living room with drinks. Dinner was fine, normal. We ate, we talked, the kids opened presents, I took photos on my phone. Liam's wife took photos on hers. 2 days later, Courtney posted a photo album on Facebook. Christmas 2025 with family. I wasn't in a single shot, not the dinner table photo where I'd been sitting right next to Liam, Not the gift opening photo where I'd been handing Owen his present. Not the group photo Courtney had specifically asked me to be in, gathering everyone by the Christmas tree. In every image, I'd been edited out. I later learned this wasn't an accident. Natalie had sent Courtney the edited versions that same night, texted instructions on which ones to post. Use these. They look better, the message said. Better meant without me. This time, I didn't call. I screenshot every photo. I saved them to a folder on my computer. And then I did what Joyce would have told me to do 6 years ago if she'd still been alive. I called a lawyer. Richard Paulson practiced family law in downtown Burlington. His office was in a converted Victorian house on Brant Street, the kind of place with original hardwood floors and a view of Lake Ontario. I'd found him through a Google search for Elder Law Attorney Burlington, Ontario. His reviews mentioned experience with financial exploitation cases. When I walked in and told him what was happening, showing him the screenshot comparisons on my phone, he didn't look surprised at all. He'd seen this before. "Mr. Fletcher," he said, leaning back in his chair and steepling his fingers, "this is more common than you'd think. In cases where adult children are planning to isolate or exploit an elderly parent, one of the first steps is social erasure. They begin removing the parent from family narratives, family photos, family events. It creates a documented pattern of estrangement that can be used later." But why would they do that? Several reasons. It makes it easier later to claim the parent is estranged, uninvolved, or mentally declining. If they pursue guardianship, for example, they can point to months or years of social media showing you absent from family life. They can say, "Look, Dad hasn't been part of the family for years. He's isolated. He's withdrawn. He needs someone to make decisions for him." He pulled up a file on his computer. "I had a case last year. Elderly woman in Hamilton. Her daughter edited her out of every family photo for 18 months, then filed for guardianship claiming the mother had dementia and was avoiding family. Took us weeks to prove the mother was the one being avoided, not the other way around. Do you have assets they might be interested in?" he asked. I thought about it carefully. My house in Burlington, a 3-bedroom bungalow near Lakeshore Road, was paid off. In the current Ontario housing market, it was worth maybe $800,000. I had pension income from Toronto Hydro, about $4,200 a month. I had savings, roughly $350,000 in RRSPs and a TFSA. Not wealthy by Toronto standards, but comfortable. More than enough to make me a target. "Some," I said. "Have either of your children asked recently about power of attorney, about your will, about whether you've thought about selling your house or moving into a retirement community?" I went cold. The conversations came flooding back. 3 months ago, Natalie had asked if I'd updated my will since Joyce died. When I said yes, she'd pushed for details. Were Liam and she splitting things evenly? Did I have a copy somewhere safe? Who was executor? 2 months ago, Liam had brought up downsizing. "Dad, this house is too much for one person. Have you thought about selling? Maybe moving into one of those new condo buildings near the lake? Less maintenance. Easier at your age." And just last month, Natalie had brought up power of attorney over coffee at Williams in downtown Burlington. "Just in case something happens, Dad, you should have someone who can make decisions. Medical decisions, financial decisions. Liam and I could share it. It's just paperwork, just in case." Paulson was nodding. Classic pattern. They're testing, seeing if you're vulnerable. The photo editing, the social erasure, that's step 1. They're creating a narrative where you're already on the margins, disconnected. It makes it easier to push the next steps. What are the next steps? Typically, they'll try to establish power of attorney, either through coercion or fraud. Once they have that, they can access your finances, sell your property, even make medical decisions. If you resist, they'll claim you're mentally incompetent. They'll use the social isolation they've created as evidence. "Look, Dad doesn't even come to family events anymore. He's confused. He needs help." I felt sick. "What do I do?" Paulson pulled out a legal pad. "First, we make sure all your legal documents are ironclad. Will, power of attorney, healthcare directive, we make it explicit that any attempt to claim incompetence requires independent medical evaluation. Second, we document everything, every conversation, every photo, every interaction. Third, we set up safeguards. I can connect you with a financial advisor who specializes in elder protection." He looked at me, and his voice went hard. "And fourth, Mr. Fletcher, Understand this. If you do nothing, they will finish this without you even noticing. You'll wake up one day in a care home you didn't choose, and your house will be sold. I've seen it happen. I later learned this wasn't unique. It was a pattern. What do you recommend? Wait. If they're planning something, they'll reveal themselves, and when they do, we'll have everything we need to stop them. I waited. January passed. I continued being invited to family dinners, continued showing up, continued being edited out of every photo that appeared online. But something shifted. Natalie called more often, asked how I was doing, invited me to Harper's school play. For 2 weeks, I let myself hope. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Then, February came, and with it, the real move. I didn't know it then, but this was the moment everything shifted. I got a call from my bank, TD Canada Trust on Brant Street. A fraud specialist named Monica. Someone had tried to access my account online using my credentials. The attempt had been blocked because it came from an unfamiliar IP address and the security questions had been answered incorrectly. Can you tell me where the attempt originated? I asked. She checked her system. Mississauga, Ontario. Specifically, an IP address registered to a residential area near Erin Mills Parkway. Does that location mean anything to you? Natalie lived in Mississauga, in a subdivision off Erin Mills Parkway. Yes, I said quietly. That's where my daughter lives. Monica was professional, but direct. Mr. Fletcher, I need to ask, do you believe your daughter may have attempted to access your account without authorization? I didn't want to believe it was her. I wanted it to be a coincidence, a hacker, anyone else. I don't know, I said finally. Maybe she was trying to check if I was okay financially. Maybe she wanted to see if I needed help. Or, Monica said carefully, maybe she wanted to see how much you had. Our fraud department sees this pattern frequently in elder financial abuse cases, family members testing access, gathering information, preparing for larger moves. She advised me to file a police report. I didn't. Not yet. I reported it to Paulson instead. He advised me to change all my passwords and enable two-factor authentication on every account. I did that same afternoon. Gordon. Paulson said when I called him with the news, "They're moving, faster than I expected. The photo editing was just the setup. Now they're probing your financial security. The next step will be legal action. Be ready." 2 weeks later, I received a letter. It was from a law firm in Toronto I'd never heard of, Mackenzie and Ross. The letter informed me that my daughter Natalie Fletcher had filed a petition with the Ontario Superior Court of Justice seeking guardianship over my person and property, citing concerns about my mental competence and ability to care for myself. The hearing was scheduled for April 15th. I called Paulson immediately. He'd been expecting this. "They're moving faster than I thought," he said. "Do you have any idea what they're basing this on?" "No, I'm perfectly fine. I manage my own finances. I cook, I clean, I drive, I volunteer at the community center twice a week. Then we fight it. I need you to get a cognitive assessment done immediately. Full. Neurological workup. We need dated medical evidence that you're competent." I saw Dr. Helena Kowalski, a geriatric psychiatrist in Hamilton, 3 days later. She put me through 4 hours of testing, memory, reasoning, executive function, everything they could measure. I passed with scores at or above average for my age group. "Mr. Fletcher," Dr. Kowalski said, her expression reassuring, "there is absolutely no evidence of cognitive impairment. You're sharp, oriented, fully capable of managing your own affairs. In fact, your scores are quite impressive for someone your age." She provided a detailed written report, a comprehensive document outlining her findings and conclusions. Paulson filed it with the court, along with our formal opposition to Natalie's petition, citing the lack of medical grounds and the malicious intent behind the application. When I read the filing, I realized they weren't trying to help me. They were trying to replace me. The hearing took place on a Tuesday morning in a courtroom in downtown Toronto. Natalie was there with her lawyer, a woman in her 40s who looked like she'd done this before. Liam sat behind her for support. Neither of them looked at me. Natalie's lawyer presented her case methodically. She claimed I'd become forgetful, confused, that I'd missed family events, that I'd stopped answering phone calls, that I'd expressed paranoid thoughts about being excluded from family photos. She painted a picture of an elderly man spiraling into dementia, too proud to admit he needed help, lashing out at family members who were trying to care for him. She even suggested I was becoming a danger to myself, citing a minor fender bender I'd had 2 years ago as evidence of declining driving skills. All lies, but lies delivered confidently, with documentation. She had screenshots of unanswered text, messages from Natalie, carefully selected to show me unresponsive. She had a doctor's note from a walk-in clinic where I'd apparently been seen for confusion and memory loss, except I'd never been to that clinic. The note was clearly forged, a detail Paulson had already flagged for the judge. Paulson cross-examined her. "Ms. Fletcher, when specifically was the last time you spoke with your father?" "About 2 weeks ago." "And did he sound confused during that conversation?" "He was agitated, angry." "Agitated or clear-minded?" "Both, I suppose." "Did he articulate his thoughts clearly? Did he know what day it was? Did he know where he was? Did he understand the subject of your conversation?" "Yes, but..." "So he demonstrated full cognitive awareness during that conversation, despite being agitated. He was upset about the photos." "That's not what I asked. Was he cognitively aware? Did he understand what you were saying and respond appropriately?" "Yes." "And you claim he's missed family events? Can you name one event in the past 6 months that your father was invited to and failed to attend?" Natalie hesitated. Her lawyer whispered something. Natalie straightened. "He didn't come to Harper's birthday party in February." "Was he invited?" Silence. "Ms. Fletcher, I'll ask again. Was your father invited to your daughter's birthday party in February?" "It was a small party, just close family." "That's not what I asked. Was he invited? Yes or no?" The judge, Justice Marilyn Chen, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, interrupted. "Ms. Fletcher, please answer the question directly. Was your father invited to this event?" "No," Natalie said quietly, her voice barely audible. "We didn't invite him," Paulson continued. "And yet you're using his absence from that event as evidence of his social withdrawal and cognitive decline in your petition to this court." Natalie's lawyer objected, citing badgering, but the judge overruled her. "The witness will answer the question." Natalie remained silent, staring at the table. "We presented Dr. Kowalski's report, a thorough and unequivocal assessment of my mental capacity. We presented bank statements showing I managed my finances perfectly, paid bills on time, balanced accounts, made reasonable investments, and had a healthy financial portfolio. We presented letters from my volunteer coordinator at the Burlington Senior Center, attesting to my reliability, mental clarity, and active participation in community programs, including leading a weekly current events discussion group." And then Paulson did something I hadn't expected. He pulled up a laptop and projected images onto the courtroom screen, side-by-side comparisons. On the left, photos from my phone showing me at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, at Harper's concert. On the right, the edited versions Natalie had posted to Facebook, where I'd been digitally removed. The courtroom went quiet. "Your Honor," Paulson said, "this is not a case of an elderly man withdrawing from his family due to declining mental capacity. This is a case of a family systematically erasing an elderly man from their lives while he remains fully present, fully engaged, fully competent. The question we must ask is, why? What purpose does it serve to edit someone out of existence while they're still alive unless you're preparing to claim they're already gone?" Justice Chen asked Natalie directly. "Why did you edit these photos?" Natalie's lawyer started to answer, but the judge cut her off. "Miss Fletcher, I asked you." Natalie looked at the floor. He doesn't fit the image we're trying to present." "What image is that?" "A successful, modern family. And your father doesn't fit that image because he's old-fashioned. He wears outdated clothes. He talks about his old job. People ask questions. So you decided to remove him from family photos rather than simply explaining he's your father?" Natalie didn't answer. Justice Chen closed her folder. "I'm denying this petition. Mr. Fletcher has demonstrated beyond any doubt that he is mentally competent, financially responsible, and fully capable of managing his own affairs. Furthermore, I'm deeply troubled by the evidence presented regarding photo manipulation and social exclusion. This appears less like genuine concern for a parent's welfare and more like a calculated attempt to establish a false narrative of incompetence." She looked at Natalie. "Ms. Fletcher, I strongly suggest you reconsider your relationship with your father. This court will not be used as a tool for financial exploitation or family manipulation. We won. But winning in court didn't fix what was broken. I went home to my house in Burlington, alone. Natalie and Liam left the courthouse without speaking to me. The house was exactly as I'd left it that morning. The coffee mug still in the sink. The living room untouched. Everything in its place. The silence was deafening. No one had called. No one had texted. No one had checked to see if I was okay. That's when I realized how alone I was. 3 days later, Harper called my cell phone. She must have gotten the number from somewhere. Maybe she'd memorized it years ago. "Grandpa?" Her voice was small, confused. "Why don't you come over anymore?" I sat down hard on my couch. Harper, it's complicated. Mom said you're busy, but you used to come every month. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing at all. Then why? I heard Natalie's voice in the background, sharp and fast. The phone went dead. That was 8 months ago. I haven't heard from Harper since. Within a week of that call, I was blocked from seeing their social media accounts entirely. Natalie, Liam, Courtney, all of them. Paulson had warned me this might happen. When you fight back and win, they don't usually come around apologizing. They double down, cut you off completely. He was right. I haven't spoken to either of my children in 8 months. I haven't seen my grandkids. Harper turned 9 in June. I sent a card and a check. It was never cashed. But I did one thing before the relationship ended completely. I changed my will. Natalie and Liam are no longer beneficiaries. Instead, everything goes into trusts for Harper and Owen when they turn 25, managed by an independent trustee. There's a letter I've written to each of them, sealed and held by Paulson, explaining what their parents did and why I made the choices I made. Maybe one day they'll understand. Maybe they'll reach out when they're older. Maybe they won't. I also set different kind of trust. One Paulson helped me design. $10,000 donated to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada in Joyce's name. Another $10,000 to an organization that helps seniors fight financial exploitation. The house, when I eventually sell it or when I die, will go partly to charity. Whatever's left will go to the grandkids. Natalie and Liam will get nothing. People ask me sometimes if I regret fighting back, if I wish I'd just let them have guardianship, kept the peace, stayed in their lives even if it meant being erased from their public ones. The answer is no. Here's what I lost. 2 children who were willing to digitally erase me to protect their image. Grandchildren I may never see grow up. The illusion that family loyalty is unconditional. Here's what I kept. My autonomy, my home, my dignity, my right to exist on my own terms. Here's what I learned. Being erased from family photos while you're still alive isn't just hurtful. It's a weapon. It's a tool. Used to make you invisible, to make your eventual legal or financial exploitation easier to justify. It's the first step in making you disappear. If I'd let it continue, the next step would have been guardianship, then power of attorney, then forced sale of my home, then a care facility I didn't choose. Then what? How long before I actually disappeared? I fought back not because I'm vindictive, but because I refused to be disappeared while I'm still breathing. Someone asked me recently if I felt like I'd won. I told them the truth. They won legally. The petition was denied, but they walked away without consequences. I won permanently, because in my will, which I updated the day after the hearing, neither of them is mentioned. Not $1, not one possession. Everything goes to a scholarship fund in Joyce's name for students studying social work and elder advocacy. They fought to control my life. I made sure they'll never control my legacy. And if you're watching this because someone in your family is editing you out of photos, isolating you, or pressuring you about legal documents, ask yourself, why? What are they preparing for? If you've ever seen this happen in your own family, tell me, what was the first sign? Some people say family is everything, that you should forgive your children no matter what, that you should bend over backwards to maintain relationships. Other people say self-respect comes first, that you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, that some betrayals are unforgivable. I know where I stand now. Would you have fought back or let yourself be erased to keep the peace? Tell me honestly. I'm curious where you stand.